So here we are in my garage. I'm going to show you the wreck here, what's left of it. Excuse the mess in the garage. We're in the middle of packing and uh, removing everything out of the car. So you can see this is the initial point of contact. That's where the Durango hit. Most of this transfer paint is actually on the paint protection film. For the most part, it protected the paint, but it's not going to protect this damage here. You can see the paint protection film here, kind of holding the broken glass, some of the broken glass in piece. The cover got knocked off. Surprisingly, the open charge port still actually works. And I actually did plug it in with the 110 volt just to see if it actually worked, and surprisingly, it was still charging. Doesn't look like any damage to the actual trunk, from what I could tell. And the trunk does open. Okay. But yeah, it's probably, you can see it bulging out right there. So that might be coming from this guy right here being protruded in. And you can kind of see that kind of like damaged over there. Whether this is salvageable or not, I'm not 100% sure. And let's move over here. So this is where the secondary impact occurred. So take a look. These wheels are completely toast. It's completely chipped. They're like got some massive, deep, very extremely deep abrasions to it as that comes off. And you can see here, this is where I think the front again hit our door. I mean, this is how close he got to our car. Like, the driver's seat's right there. This is probably where I disengaged from autopilot, and you can see here, you know, you don't see any paint damage because of the paint protection film. But yeah, like this whole piece needs to be replaced. Probably this piece would need to be replaced. Yeah, it's either damage here, bumper, of course, but you know, it's could have been worse. Look here. Only reason why I decided to drive home was because I had some wiggle room here and decided just to drive really slow back home, just so I could park it away. But yeah, for the most part, it held. It was still drivable, but we'll find out if it's still salvageable. A little under 2 years, and unfortunately, it happened. Someone crashed into my Model 3, my baby, the car that I was saving up since before 2015, before I even knew I wanted a Model 3, the car that I put a down payment on without even seeing the unveiling since I was on vacation in Europe. Notice I said crash and not accident. This was no accident. In my opinion, it was caused by an extremely careless driver who had no regard for human life, leaving my car now at the mercy of the insurance companies. I'm going to go and highlight the crash and walk you through what happened quickly. Now, I'm going to show you exactly what happened, but it's not from my dash cam. I'll show you what happened to mine later and explain how you don't end up in the same position as me. I also want you to keep in mind that I've been driving for about 25 years. I've only been in one accident that was my fault. And I learned my lesson from that one. There's a reason why I have a safe driving record. So my wife and I were heading on a vacation near Palm Springs. To provide some context for people, it's about 2.5 hours away from San Diego. With us getting ready to move into a new home, this was meant to be a getaway for us so that we could actually relax during the weekend. We were in Fallbrook, California when the incident occurred. I was in the second to the last lane, getting ready to pass the oversized semi. I've seen so many semis cross over the line that I was already cautious. Before we could pass the semi, you'll see a vehicle get in front of me and pass the semi. Keep this in mind, this is important. While we were preparing to pass, we noticed that the semi went pretty far into our lane. At this point, my wife was telling me to look out, as I moved my foot from the accelerator and started hovering over the brakes. If you look at the scenario right now, we have a Prius to the left of me, a vehicle a couple car lengths ahead of me, and from my initial glance, a Model 3 that's about 2 seconds behind me. I have a split decision to make here. If I try to punch it, I could be trapped between several cars and an approaching semi. I decided to go with the safest option, which is to slow down and see what the semi is going to do. Before I could actually slow down, that's when the autopilot kicked in and started slowing down for me. It was pretty gradual, keeping pace with the semi itself. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Durango. You can see that the Durango is speeding up, definitely exceeding the speed limit. You see it approaching the Prius, driving entirely on top of the car. When it realized it couldn't go faster, the driver decided to switch lanes without a turn signal, squeezing between myself and the other Model 3 driver, leaving zero room for error. Because it was so close, it could not react to me slowing down, and the Durango just ends up plowing right into me and the Prius next to me. This could have ended horribly. I could have easily spun out of control with that hit at highway speed. Or I could even be pushed into the semi pretty easily. This may sound fanboyish, but with any other car, that probably would have happened. With Tesla's hefty battery at the bottom, it provided a low center of gravity that kept the car steady. And with autopilot, the vehicle stayed in its lane. Now people might think, why didn't I just punch it? It's very easy to say these things in hindsight when you're looking at a video in third person. If you're watching sports, this is akin for a fan yelling at a player why they didn't make a particular play, or blaming the referee that they're blind and didn't make the right call. It's easy to make these decisions after the fact when you're viewing the video where you could pause it, play at a half speed, slowly rewind, knowing what the outcome is afterwards. This was a similar argument that was made against Chelsea Sullenberger, aka Sully. If you don't remember, he was the pilot that landed the plane in the Hudson River in 2009. Everyone criticized him for not turning the plane around and trying to make that attempt to land in the airport. Using the aircraft telemetry, they made a case against him that he could have landed that plane safely back at the airport. We found out later that this was not the case, and Sully actually made the perfect call. As I mentioned before, this was a split decision that needed to be made. My wife was in the car. She could see the semi encroaching us. Her safety is the utmost importance to me at this point. If I punch it and get boxed in the lane, two things could have happened. Either nothing will happen and the semi goes back into the lane, or the semi veers more, impacting us and potentially putting my wife at risk. The only logical move I have at this point is to actually slow down and hope that everyone kept a safe and proper following distance. If that driver wasn't being reckless, none of this would have happened. So what happened to my dash cam? Well, after the accident, when I pulled over, I pressed the dash cam icon. The last minute was entirely corrupted. I'm not sure where the fault occurred, but I have some tips for you to make sure that you don't end up in the same situation as myself. So first of all, I use a Jetta hub where I store my dash cam footage. And if I open the door, this is where you will see that I have my roadie inside here. When we pulled over, I noticed that the door was open and the roadie was sticking out. Now, this is not Jetta's fault. This is actually my fault here. So Jetta comes with a piece, with this little piece right here, which I failed to install. Now this is a magnet with the adhesive on the back. And you could use this to secure your hard drive or your SD drive to the Jetta hub. And because I did not have that, the force of the impact actually pushed my roadie out of the Jetta hub. And pretty sure that might have caused some recording issues. There's another thing to note about the roadie is that the solution it's using is an SD card. Because of all the writes that Tesla performs of the footage onto the drive, we quickly found out that SD drive may not be the best suited device for your dash cam in your car. And in this case, I could have been a victim of a write error. To avoid this, it's probably best to use a solid state drive for your dash cam. Lastly, it could have been Tesla itself that glitched. If this was the case, there's nothing that anyone could have done. It could have just simply glitched from the sheer impact of the other car hitting me. So my recommendation after this incident is to make sure you use an SSD and make sure it's secured into your Jetta hub or into your Tesla, that it's not moving around. I would hate to see anyone else be put in the same situation as me. And you may not always have a friendly Tesla driver following right behind that's willing to pull over and share his footage. Hope this helps. Till next time.